Hey guys, Tucking Dave over here, the dorky talking black guy that's just trying to get by. And welcome to another edition of Helltober, my celebration of horror and Halloween for the month of October. So, Day of the Dead was a very divisive movie. Despite the divisiveness, most of the fans of the Living Dead movies still hold it to a positive degree, and seeing it as a fitting end to George Romero's Living Dead trilogy. However, you could actually see in the movie that there were a lot more themes that Romero wanted to explore, and he had a much bigger scope of things. Sadly, he was restricted by his budget, and with the box office numbers of Day of the Dead, it was highly unlikely anyone was going to give George A. Romero more money to allow his full vision to be brought to fruition, which is really sad because at the time the zombie craze was still in effect with movies like Return of the Living Dead, and as well a remake of the original Night of the Living Dead, which I will cover sometime way in the future. Sadly, the zombie craze kind of waned after the Night of the Living Dead remake and everything, despite it being a decent adaptation. And the zombie craze and George Romero's name became more of a bit of a cult following name. That is until 1996 when Capcom released the Resident Evil, the video game that helped establish the survival horror genre. And at that time period as well, video game movies were actually being made. And while mostly failing, one video game that could easily be adopted into a movie was Resident Evil, because the setting was very cinematic, story was easy to follow, and it actually had a feel of the George Romero zombie movies, Living Dead series. And it was no surprise that he was tapped to direct the video game. However, at the time, people were saying that Romero was kind of off his rocker and his script was bad, and with him not being a gamer, people were saying that it would translate horribly into a movie. At the time, I could have seen this happening. But after reading part of the script, I'm like, what? He actually got it closer to the game than the actual Resident Evil movie we had. With that being said, the actual Resident Evil movie did actually garner a lot of attention and drew mainstream fans to zombies again, despite me disliking that movie. And despite me disliking that movie and George A. Romero's name being attached to create another zombie movie, fans of the games were still hounding for George A. Romero to actually do another Living Dead movie. But if he was going to do it, he needed the budget to have his vision come to pass. And that actually happened 20 years after Day of the Dead with George A. Romero's Land of the Dead. Alright? So, Land of the Dead is the fourth installment of the Living Dead series, and is the jumpstart to kick off basically his second Living Dead trilogy. Sort of. So, in this movie, basically, as in Day of the Dead, the zombies are the majority. Well, a little bit more so. Zombies pretty much took over. Now, there are still human remnants here and there, but we're focusing on one human remnant in Pittsburgh, a city that is basically built, but however, there is a huge divide between the wealthy and the poor. And in this movie, basically, we have those that are poor working for, working for Dennis Hopper's character, and I can't believe I forgot his name again and everything. Oh, good lord. Anyway, that's what I get for rushing. Anywho, these trackers and supply getters, they're working for Dennis Hopper, and one particular one named Cholo, played by John Leguizamo, feels that he should have his own apartment in Dennis Hopper's complex. However, when Dennis Hopper says no, Cholo decides to go rogue, steal a car, and actually like demand $2 million in ransom. Hopper's only way to get his money back and his actual car is to call upon Riley, Cholo's partner, whom actually worked with him and everything and was trying to retire. So now Riley, with his friends, are going after Cholo in order to get the car back and try to find a way to actually leave Pittsburgh. Now, I did not do a good description of the plot itself, so if this didn't intrigue you, I am sorry. I am kind of rushing a bit due to some things coming up with school and all, but, if this did kind of intrigue you, or if you want to do more reading to get a better understanding of the plot, please look online and please check this movie out, because this is the movie where George A. Romero finally got to see his full vision come to pass. Now, in his other Living Dead movies, he always had a centralized theme, and each movie kind of built around it, where the original movie was us being monsters and us basically starting the fall of our own society, to consumerism and a growing need of materialism, to actually Darwinism, where basically the strong survive and evolving. Here, all that comes into play, plus his original version that he wanted, which is the growing gap between the wealthy and the poor, or more so, the upper class and the lower class. Because now with the hollowing out of the middle class, there's basically just two classes in this world, and that's portrayed in Land of the Dead. In addition to Land of the Dead, we actually have the first all-star cast. I mentioned Dennis Hopper, who is the main antagonist of this movie, as well as John Leguizamo, Cholo, who is a secondary antagonist, but John Leguizamo's character, Cholo, is both simple and complex. He does not want to be among one of the poor and everything. He's seen his father, scraping and everything. At the same time, he adopted the mindset that he will do anything that he needs to do to become rich and powerful, even if it means stepping on other people. While Riley himself, he just wants to live comfortably in his own area and not have to follow the rules of anyone else, yet at the same time does not want to be a leader, So which gives us a very interesting triangle of the characters. In addition, we have the zombies not only piggybacking off Day of the Dead of displaying intelligence and evolving. The zombies are more evolved and a lot more intelligent, something that the humans themselves still cannot really see, with the exception of Riley himself, And we get to see that in this with basically the lead zombie, Big Daddy, whom is actually the token black character. While George A. Romero used token black characters in his other movies, this is actually a nice flip, where the token black character is not only a zombie, but the leader of the zombies, whom actually discovers how to utilize weapons. And I'm not just talking about clubs. I'm talking about he utilizes machines. He learns how to fire an automatic rifle. He learns how to he sees how jacks work. He is able to understand basically how to utilize fire against the humans, So Land of the Dead actually pretty much allowed George A. Romero to actually have his vision come to pass. And this movie, while lacking in some of the horror aspects that made Dawn of the Dead amazeballs, as well as made Night of the Living Dead a classic, Land of the Dead actually gives us a great underlying theme, compelling characters, great action sequences, as well as decent gore. And I must admit, while I do see some issues with the CGI is still not as bad, where it's just used sparingly and effectively. Most of the effects in this movie are still practical, and they are the best practical effects that I have seen in the Living Dead franchise thus far. So, great characters, great effects, great theme, great vision. You know, Land of the Dead is amazeballs. While it is not my personal favorite, that still is Dawn of the Dead. I have to say that Land of the Dead is the best film that George A. Romero did in the Living Dead series. Agree? Disagree? Drop me a comment below. Give me a like. Follow me at Token Dave on Facebook or Token Dave 80 at Twitter. Subscribe and ring that bell so you know when a new video loads. But until then, this has been Token Dave, the dorky token black guy who's just trying to get by, and I'll catch you guys later.